The small village of Willowbrook was known for its rolling hills, dense forests, and the strange tales that seemed to linger in the air, like morning mist. But nothing could have prepared the villagers for the events that unfolded on the day of Amelia's funeral. Amelia was a woman of grace and kindness, loved by all who knew her. But her heart belonged to two beings, David, her childhood sweetheart, and Thunder, her loyal horse. Thunder was no ordinary horse. He was fierce, intelligent, and had an almost human-like understanding of Amelia's emotions. They shared a bond that was unbreakable, a bond forged through years of trust and companionship. David, too, adored Amelia. Their love was the kind that poets wrote about, pure, passionate, and eternal. But not everyone was happy for them. James, David's jealous cousin, had always harbored feelings for Amelia. When she chose David over him, something dark stirred within James. He couldn't bear to see them together, and his envy festered into something far more dangerous. One fateful evening, Amelia fell violently ill. The village healer tried everything, but nothing worked. Within days, she was gone. The entire village mourned her passing, and David was inconsolable. Thunder, however, refused to leave her side. He stood by her coffin, his eyes filled with a sorrow that mirrored David's. The day of the funeral arrived. The villagers gathered in the cemetery, their hearts heavy with grief. The priest began the final rites, and just as the coffin was about to be lowered into the ground, something unimaginable happened. Thunder, who had been standing quietly at the edge of the crowd, suddenly reared up on his hind legs. With a powerful leap, he jumped into the open grave, landing on top of the coffin. The crowd gasped in shock. Some screamed, while others stood frozen in place. The horse began to paw at the coffin, his hooves striking the wood with such force that it splintered. David rushed forward, shouting for Thunder to stop, but the horse wouldn't listen. It was as if he was trying to tell them something urgent. And then amidst the chaos, a faint sound came from inside the coffin, a soft, barely audible moan. The crowd fell silent. The priest, trembling, ordered the coffin to be opened. As the lid was pried off, everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. Amelia's eyes fluttered open, and she took a shallow, shaky breath. She was alive. The cemetery erupted into chaos. People screamed, cried, and fell to their knees in prayer. Amelia, weak and disoriented, tried to sit up, but her strength failed her. David rushed to her side, tears streaming down his face as he cradled her in his arms. Thunder stood nearby, his nostrils flaring, his eyes fixed on Amelia as if guarding her from any further harm. The villagers couldn't believe what they were witnessing. How could someone declared dead suddenly come back to life? The priest, pale and shaken, declared it a miracle, a sign from the heavens. But not everyone was convinced. James, who had been standing at the back of the crowd, looked visibly disturbed. His face was ashen, and his hands trembled as he clutched the edge of his coat. Amelia was carried back to her home, where the village healer tended to her. She was weak and confused, unable to recall much of what had happened. All she remembered was falling ill and then waking up in the coffin, surrounded by darkness and the sound of Thunder's hooves pounding above her. As the days passed, Amelia slowly regained her strength. David rarely left her side, and Thunder remained close, always watching over her. But something felt off. Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that her illness hadn't been natural. She remembered the bitter taste of the tea James had brought her the night she fell ill. At the time, she had thought nothing of it, but now the memory haunted her. Meanwhile, James grew increasingly restless. He avoided the village, spending most of his time alone in the woods. His guilt gnawed at him, but he couldn't bring himself to confess. He had acted out of jealousy, driven by a desire to remove Amelia from David's life. He never intended for things to go this far. But now, with Amelia alive and the village buzzing with talk of miracles, he feared his secret would be exposed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, James returned to the village. He found David sitting by the fire outside Amelia's home. Thunder stood nearby, his ears twitching as he watched James approach. There was something unsettling about the horse's gaze, something almost human. "David," James began, his voice trembling, "we need to talk." David looked up, his expression a mix of anger and confusion. About what, James? About how you've been avoiding everyone since the funeral? Or about how you've been acting strange ever since Amelia came back? James hesitated, his eyes darting to Thunder, who was now staring directly at him. The horse's gaze was piercing, as if he could see straight into James's soul. James swallowed hard and took a step back. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, James stammered. I couldn't stand seeing you two together. I thought if Amelia was gone, you'd finally see me as more than just your cousin. David's eyes widened in shock. What are you saying, James? Did you do something to Amelia? Before James could respond, Thunder let out a loud, piercing whinny. The sound echoed through the night, sending a chill down James's spine. The horse stepped forward, his eyes never leaving James. It was as if he knew the truth, as if he had been waiting for this moment. James stumbled back, his face pale with fear. I, I didn't mean to hurt her, he whispered. I just wanted her to go away. I didn't think she'd die. David's hands clenched into fists, his anger boiling over. You poisoned her. You tried to kill her. James didn't answer. He couldn't. The weight of his guilt was too much to bear. He turned and ran, disappearing into the darkness of the forest. David wanted to chase after him, but Amelia's voice stopped him. Let him go, she said softly, standing in the doorway of her home. Her face was pale, but her eyes were filled with a quiet strength. He'll face his guilt sooner or later. Right now, we have more important things to worry about. David nodded, though his heart was heavy. He turned to Thunder, who was still staring into the forest where James had disappeared. The horse's ears were pinned back, and his nostrils flared as if he could still sense James's presence. Thank you, David said, placing a hand on Thunder's neck. If it weren't for you, Amelia would be... He couldn't bring himself to finish the sentence. Thunder snorted softly, his breath warm against David's hand. It was as if the horse understood every word, as if he knew exactly what had happened and what needed to be done. But the mystery was far from over. James's confession had only raised more questions. How had Amelia survived the poison? And why had Thunder been so determined to save her? The answers lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. The days that followed James's confession were tense. The village was abuzz with whispers and speculation. Some believed Amelia's survival was a divine miracle, while others suspected darker forces were at play. James had vanished into the forest, and no one had seen him since that fateful night. David and Amelia, however, were more concerned with piecing together what had truly happened. Amelia's memories of the night she fell ill were hazy, but one detail stood out: the tea James had brought her. She remembered its bitter taste, so unlike the herbal brews she usually drank. She also recalled how James had insisted she drink it, claiming it would help her sleep. Now, with the truth of his betrayal revealed, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that the tea had been poisoned. David, determined to uncover the full extent of James's actions, sought out the village healer. The old woman was wise and knowledgeable, with a deep understanding of herbs and their effects. When David explained what had happened, the healer's face grew grave. There are plants in these woods that can mimic death, she said, her voice low and solemn. If James used one of them, it's possible Amelia wasn't truly dead, just in a deep, death-like sleep. But such plants are dangerous. A small miscalculation in the dosage could have killed her. David's heart sank. So James didn't mean to kill her. The healer shook her head. It's hard to say. He may have intended to harm her, or he may have simply been reckless. Either way, it's a miracle she survived. Meanwhile, Thunder remained by Amelia's side, his behavior more protective than ever. He seemed to sense her unease, often nuzzling her hand or standing guard outside her home at night. The villagers began to whisper about the horse, calling him a spirit animal or a guardian sent by the gods. But Amelia knew better. Thunder was no ordinary horse, but his loyalty was born of love, not magic. One evening, as the sun set and the village grew quiet, Amelia decided to confront her own fears. She walked to the edge of the forest, where the trees loomed dark and foreboding. Thunder followed close behind, his presence a comforting reassurance. Amelia knew James was out there somewhere, and she needed to find him, not for revenge, but for closure. "James," she called, her voice echoing through the trees. "I know you're out there. Please come out. We need to talk." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then slowly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was James, but he looked like a ghost of his former self. His clothes were torn, his face gaunt, and his eyes hollow with guilt. "Emilia," he whispered, his voice trembling. I, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just, I couldn't stand seeing you with David. I thought if you were gone, he'd finally see me as more than just his cousin." Emilia's heart ached for him, but her voice was firm. "What you did was wrong, James. You could have killed me, but I'm not here to punish you. I just want to understand." James sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted you to go away. I thought the poison would make you sick, not, not, not make me appear dead," Emilia finished for him. "You didn't think it through, James, and because of that, you almost destroyed everything." James nodded, his guilt overwhelming him. "I don't know how to make this right. I don't know if I can." Amelia knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You can start by facing what you've done. Come back to the village. Confess to everyone. It's the only way to begin healing." James looked up at her, his eyes filled with despair. "And what if they never forgive me?" "That's not for you to decide," Amelia said gently, "but hiding in the shadows will only make things worse." Thunder, who had been standing silently nearby, stepped forward and nudged James with his nose. It was a small gesture, but it carried a profound meaning. Even the horse, who had every reason to despise James, seemed to be offering him a chance at redemption. James took a deep breath and nodded. "You're right. I'll come back. I'll face what I've done." As they walked back to the village, Emilia couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. James's confession would bring pain, but it would also bring closure. And perhaps, in time, the wounds he had caused would heal. But the mystery of Thunder's role in all of this still lingered. How had the horse known Emilia was alive? And why had he been so determined to save her? The answers, Emilia suspected, were tied to something far deeper than anyone could imagine. As James returned to the village and confessed his actions, the atmosphere grew heavy with tension. The villagers were torn between anger and pity. Some called for justice, while others believed James had suffered enough. David, though furious, agreed with Emilia that James needed to face the consequences of his actions, not through vengeance, but through accountability. But amidst the turmoil, the villagers couldn't stop talking about Thunder. The horse's extraordinary behavior had left everyone in awe. How had he known Emilia was alive? Why had he jumped into the coffin? The questions swirled like leaves in the wind, and soon the village elders decided it was time to uncover the truth. One evening, the elders gathered around a bonfire in the center of the village. Emilia, David, and even James were invited to attend. Thunder stood nearby, his presence commanding yet calm. The oldest elder, a man with a long white beard and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom, began to speak. "Long ago," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "there was a legend in these parts. It spoke of a horse born under a blood moon, a horse with a spirit so strong it could sense life where others saw only death. This horse was said to be a guardian, a protector of those who were pure of heart." The villagers listened intently, their eyes flickering to Thunder. The horse stood tall, his coat gleaming in the firelight, his eyes reflecting the flames as if they held secrets of their own. "The legend," the elder continued, "told of a bond between the horse and its chosen human, a bond so powerful it could defy death itself. It was said that if the human was in danger, the horse would stop at nothing to save them, even if it meant crossing into the realm of the supernatural." Emilia's breath caught in her throat. She looked at Thunder, her heart swelling with emotion. Could it be true? Was Thunder the horse from the legend? She had always felt a deep connection with him, but this was something beyond her understanding. David, too, was stunned. "Are you saying Thunder is special? That he's not just an ordinary horse?" The elder nodded. "It would explain his actions. He sensed Emilia's life force. Even when everyone else believed she was gone, he acted not out of instinct, but out of loyalty and love." James, who had been sitting quietly, spoke up for the first time. If that's true, then I owe Thunder my life too. If he hadn't saved Amelia, I would have carried the guilt of her death forever. The elder turned to James, his gaze stern but not unkind. You have much to atone for, young man, but perhaps this is your chance to learn from your mistakes and become a better person. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, the villagers began to share their own stories of Thunder. Some recalled how he had always seemed to know when someone was in trouble, appearing out of nowhere to offer comfort or protection. Others remembered how he had once saved a child from drowning in the river, pulling them to safety with a strength that defied explanation. Emilia listened, her heart full. She had always known Thunder was special, but hearing these stories made her realize just how extraordinary he truly was. She walked over to him, placing a hand on his neck. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Thunder nuzzled her hand, his breath warm against her skin. It was as if he understood every word, every emotion. In that moment, Amelia felt a surge of gratitude and love so profound it brought tears to her eyes. But the elder's story had also raised new questions. If Thunder was indeed the horse from the legend, what did that mean for Amelia? Was she the chosen human the elder had spoken of? And if so, what destiny awaited her? As the villagers dispersed and the fire burned low, Emilia and David stayed behind, sitting together under the stars. Thunder stood nearby, his presence a comforting constant. "Do you think it's true?" David asked, his voice soft. "Do you think Thunder is magical?" Emilia smiled, though her eyes were thoughtful. "I don't know, but I do know he's special, and whatever happens, I'm grateful to have him in my life." David nodded, his hand finding hers. "Me too. He saved you, Amelia, and in doing so, he saved us all." The night was quiet, the only sound the gentle rustling of leaves in the wind. But beneath the surface, something stirred, a sense of destiny, of forces beyond their understanding. The legend of Thunder was far from over, and the events that had unfolded were only the beginning. The days following the elder's revelation were peaceful, but there was an undercurrent of unease in the village. The legend of Thunder had stirred something deep within the villagers, a mix of awe and fear. Some began to treat Thunder with reverence, leaving offerings of apples and oats by Amelia's home. Others whispered nervously, wondering if the horse's presence was a sign of greater things to come. Emilia, too, felt the weight of the legend. She had always known Thunder was special, but now she couldn't shake the feeling that their bond was tied to something larger than herself. She often found herself staring at the horizon, as if waiting for something or someone to appear. One afternoon, as dark clouds gathered over Willowbrook, a stranger arrived in the village. He was a tall man with a weathered face and eyes that seemed to pierce through the soul. He carried a staff carved with strange symbols, and his presence sent a ripple of unease through the villagers. The stranger approached Amelia and David as they stood near the edge of the forest. Thunder, who had been grazing nearby, immediately raised his head, his ears twitching as he watched the man with a wary gaze. "I've been searching for you," the stranger said, his voice low and gravelly. "For both of you." Emilia frowned. "Who are you?" "My name is Alaric," the man replied. "I am a keeper of the old ways, a seeker of truths, and I have come to warn you." David stepped forward, his protective instincts kicking in. "Warn us about what?" Alaric's eyes flickered to Thunder, then back to Amelia. "The bond you share with this horse is no ordinary bond. It is a bond forged by fate, a bond that has drawn the attention of forces beyond this world." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Alaric leaned on his staff, his expression grave. "There are those who seek to break the bond between you and Thunder. They believe that by doing so, they can harness the power of the legend for themselves, and they will stop at nothing to achieve their goal." David's jaw tightened. "Who are these people, and why would they want to hurt Amelia?" Alaric shook his head. "It is not just Amelia they seek to harm. It is the bond itself. The legend of the Blood Moon Horse is ancient, and its power is coveted by many. If they succeed in breaking the bond, it will not only destroy Amelia and Thunder, but also unleash chaos upon this world." Emilia felt a chill run down her spine. She looked at Thunder, who was now standing close to her, his body tense and his eyes fixed on Alaric. It was as if the horse understood every word. "What can we do?" Amelia asked, her voice trembling. Alaric's gaze softened. "You must protect the bond. Stay close to Thunder, and do not let anyone come between you. The storm that approaches is not just a storm of nature, it is a storm of destiny, and you are at the center of it." As if on cue, the sky darkened, and a low rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. The wind picked up, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. David placed a hand on Amelia's shoulder. "We'll face this together. Whatever comes, we'll protect each other." Alaric nodded. "You will need each other in the days to come. But remember, the bond between Amelia and Thunder is the key. Protect it at all costs." With that, Alaric turned and walked away, disappearing into the forest as quickly as he had arrived. The villagers, who had been watching from a distance, murmured nervously among themselves. The stranger's words had left them unsettled, and the gathering storm only added to their fear. Emilia looked at Thunder, her heart heavy with worry. "What do we do now?" she whispered. Thunder nuzzled her hand, his touch reassuring. It was as if he was telling her not to be afraid, that they would face whatever came together. David squeezed her shoulder. "We'll be ready. Whatever happens, we'll face it as a family." As the first drops of rain began to fall, Emilia felt a surge of determination. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. She would do whatever it took to protect the bond she shared with Thunder. The storm was coming, and with it, a test of love, loyalty, and destiny. The rain fell steadily, drenching the village and turning the dirt paths into muddy streams. Despite the downpour, Amelia, David, and Thunder remained outside, their minds racing with Alaric's warning. The stranger's words had left them with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear. They couldn't afford to wait for the storm to find them. "We need a plan," David said, his voice barely audible over the sound of the rain. "If there are people out there who want to break the bond between you and Thunder, we have to be ready." Amelia nodded, her hand resting on Thunder's neck. The horse stood tall, his coat glistening with rainwater, his eyes sharp and alert. He seemed to sense the urgency in their voices, his ears twitching as he scanned the horizon. "But how do we fight something we don't even understand?" Amelia asked, her voice tinged with frustration. "Alaric didn't tell us who these people are, or how they plan to break the bond." David frowned, his mind racing. "Maybe we don't need to know everything. Maybe we just need to stay together and trust each other. Thunder's already proven he'll do whatever it takes to protect you. We just have to do the same for him." Emilia looked at Thunder, her heart swelling with love and determination. "You're right. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." As the rain continued to fall, the trio made their way back to Emilia's home. The villagers had retreated indoors, their windows glowing with the warm light of hearth fires. The storm had brought an eerie stillness to the village, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Inside, Emilia lit a fire, its warmth a small comfort against the chill of the night. Thunder stood by the door, his presence a constant reminder of the bond they shared. David sat beside Emilia, his hand in hers, their silence speaking volumes. For now, all they could do was wait. The storm was coming, and with it, a battle that would test their love, their loyalty, and their very souls. But as long as they had each other, they knew they could face anything. The storm raged through the night, its fury unmatched. Thunder and lightning split the sky, and the wind howled like a wounded beast. But the true storm was yet to come. Just before dawn, the village was shaken awake by a deafening crash. Emilia, David, and Thunder rushed outside to find a group of shadowy figures approaching through the rain. They were cloaked in black, their faces hidden, and their presence radiated malice. At their head was a tall, imposing figure with eyes that glowed like embers. "Emilia," the figure called, his voice echoing unnaturally. "We have come for the bond. Surrender it, and we will spare your village." David stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure smirked. "We are the seekers of the shattered bond. The legend of the blood moon horse belongs to us. Hand over the horse, or face the consequences." Emilia's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "Thunder is not yours to take. Our bond is ours alone. The figure's eyes narrowed. Then you leave us no choice. With a wave of his hand, the seekers advanced. Thunder reared up, his powerful hooves striking the ground as he let out a fierce whinny. The villagers, awakened by the commotion, gathered behind Amelia and David, their faces filled with fear and determination. "We won't let you take him," David shouted, grabbing a nearby pitchfork. The villagers followed his lead, arming themselves with whatever they could find. The battle began in earnest. The seekers moved with unnatural speed and strength, but the villagers fought bravely, their love for Amelia and Thunder giving them courage. Thunder was a force of nature himself, charging at the seekers and driving them back with his sheer power. Emilia, though unarmed, stood firm. She focused on the bond she shared with Thunder, channeling her love and loyalty into a shield of light that surrounded them. The seekers recoiled, their dark magic faltering in the face of her purity. The leader of the seekers snarled, his glowing eyes blazing with fury. "You cannot win! The bond will be broken!" "No," Amelia said, her voice steady. "The bond is unbreakable. It's stronger than your darkness." With a final, desperate cry, the leader lunged at Amelia. But Thunder was faster. The horse charged forward, his body colliding with the seeker and sending him sprawling. The other seekers, seeing their leader fall, began to retreat, their forms dissolving into shadows as they fled. The storm began to subside, the rain slowing to a gentle drizzle. The villagers cheered, their voices filled with relief and triumph. Emilia knelt beside Thunder, her arms wrapped around his neck. "You did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us." David joined them, his hand resting on Amelia's shoulder. "We all did. Together." As the sun rose over Willowbrook, the village was bathed in a golden light. The storm had passed, and with it, the threat to the bond. The legend of Thunder had been tested, but it had emerged stronger than ever. In the days that followed, the villagers celebrated their victory. James, who had fought alongside them, began to earn back their trust. The elder spoke of the bond as a symbol of hope, a reminder that love and loyalty could overcome even the darkest forces. Emilia, David, and Thunder stood at the center of it all, their bond unshakable. They knew that challenges would come again, but they also knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. And so the legend of Thunder lived on, not just as a tale of the past, but as a beacon of light for the future.
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.